How many of the knives sitting in your drawer right now did you make worse the last time you tried to clean one up? Not lost, not stolen, made worse by your own hand, with the best of intentions and the wrong tool. I would bet the number is higher than you want to admit, because it was higher than I wanted to admit for a long time. My name is Walt Rennick. I am 71 years old. I spent 34 years as a tool and die maker in Ohio, and by my own rough count, about 9,000 blades have passed across my bench since my grandfather first put a rusty Barlow in my 9-year-old hands. Today I'm going to give you 8 things. 8 specific moves that take a $3 rusty knife nobody wanted and turn it into a $34 knife that a collector will pay for and that still cuts. Not a wall hanger. A working knife. Here's the part that will bother some of you. The rust is not what is destroying that knife's value. The sandpaper is. The rust you can manage. The damage most people do trying to remove it can never be undone. You have seen the silent videos. Hundreds of millions of views, a filthy blade going into a jar, coming out the other side polished like a car bumper. Not one word of explanation the whole way through. What those videos never tell you is what got destroyed to make that shine. The maker's stamp sanded off the tang. The temper cooked out of the edge on a wire wheel. A factory satin finish buffed to a mirror it never had. Original bone handles pried off and replaced with colored resin. It looks beautiful, and it is worth a fraction of what it was worth dirty. Silent, pretty, and financially ruinous. I know because I did every one of those things. For my first 11 years, I went at carbon steel with a bench grinder and an 80 grit belt. I soaked blades in vinegar overnight because somebody told me to. I hit them with a wire cup brush chucked in a drill. I oiled them with whatever was on the garage shelf, and twice that was motor oil. I think about the knives I ruined in those years more than the ones I saved. An old knife dealer at a show in Mansfield told me something when I was maybe 30, and I have repeated it for 40 years. You can always take more steel off tomorrow. You can never put it back. Everything I am about to tell you comes out of that one sentence. So here's what I want from you. If you have a knife you inherited and have been afraid to touch, tell me down in the comments exactly what it is and exactly what is stamped on the tang. Read it to me letter by letter. I will tell you what you have. And I will tell you now that the 8th thing on this list is the cheapest of all of them. It costs under $1. It is the single move that has taken more of my knives from $3 to $34 than any polishing step I know. And almost nobody does it because it is not dramatic. Stay with me, and I will hand it to you at the end. The first thing is the wash. And it is where most of the damage happens before anyone even starts. Take the whole knife and put it in warm water with a drop of plain dish soap. Warm, not hot. Hot water gets under old scales and swells the wood. A soft toothbrush, an old one, and you scrub off the grease and the pocket lint and the surface grime. That is all. You are not touching rust yet. You are just getting the dirt off so you can see what you actually have. This costs you a nickel of soap and 10 minutes. The reason it matters is that most people mistake grime for rust and start grinding on something that would have wiped off. A lot of what looks like corrosion on an old pocket knife is nothing more than 40 years of hand oil, tobacco, and pocket dust packed into the grind lines. It comes off with a rag. I have seen a man take a wire wheel to a blade that needed a warm cloth and a little patience, and he never got that steel back. When you dry it all the way and work a corner of the towel into the joint of a folder, because water that sits in that pivot overnight is where tomorrow's rust starts. Look before you attack. A clean knife tells you the truth about itself. The second thing is the reed. And this is where the $3 becomes $34 or stays $3 forever. Before you remove one particle of anything, you find the stamp. It lives on the tang, which is the part of the blade that disappears into the handle, or on the ricasso, the flat spot just ahead of the handle. That stamp is the entire value of the knife. Brand, pattern number, date code, all of it. A caisse with a set of dots under it, each dot a year, tells a collector the exact year it was made. And when they started pulling one dot off each year through the 1970s, that pattern itself became a way to date the blade to a single year. A Schrade, a Remington bullet stamp, an old Winchester, each one carries its own language in that little block of steel. Sand that off and you have a knife. Leave it and you have a dated, identified piece that a collector will bid on. I keep a cheap loupe on the bench, a $10 jeweler's glass, and I read every tang before I do anything because sometimes the stamp is faint and half under a bloom of rust. And if you had gone at it with sandpaper, you would have erased the one thing that mattered before you ever saw it. The move here is simple, and it is the whole game. Whatever you do next, you do not touch that stamp. You work around it like it is wet paint. That single discipline is the difference between $3 and $34 on half the knives I handle. Let me stop here for a second. What I just walked you through, reading the tang and knowing what you are holding before you touch it, is one page of chapter 4. There are 11 more chapters. It is a book called The Restorer's Bench, first edition, 158 pages, 12 chapters, and the whole thing is organized by the decision you are facing, not by some theory. It comes with the bench cards you keep next to the vise, a safety card, and an index arranged by symptom so you can find your problem fast. What it buys you is this: the knife in your drawer, tonight, and you knowing what it is and exactly where to stop. The link is in the description, and the QR code is on the screen right now. This is the night you stop being afraid of that drawer. The third thing is the soak, and here is where I part ways with the internet completely. Not vinegar. Vinegar is acetic acid at 5%, and it eats rust, but the moment the rust is gone, it keeps right on going into the healthy steel, and it pits it. Leave a blade in vinegar overnight, and you pull out a knife with a rough gray surface like a cinder block, and no amount of sanding brings that smoothness back. Use citric acid instead. It's the same stuff that makes a lemon sour. You buy a pound of it for a couple of dollars in the canning aisle next to the pectin, and you mix a couple of tablespoons into a quart of warm water. It grabs the iron and the rust and pulls it into solution, and it is far gentler on the base metal. 30 minutes, not overnight. Then you check it, pull it out, wipe it with a rag, and see how much lifted. If it needs more, back in for another 20. You control it in short steps instead of walking away and hoping. The reason this works is that citric acid chelates the iron, meaning it wraps around the rust molecule and lifts it off, rather than just burning everything it touches. And you do this in a ventilated spot with gloves on, because any acid on bare skin over time is a thing you regret. When it comes out with a gray film called a smut. And that wipes right off with a rag and a little baking soda water to stop the acid dead. 90 cents of citric acid does what a $22 bottle of branded rust gel does, because the branded gel is mostly citric or phosphoric acid too. Nobody advertises the 90-cent version because there is no money in telling you. A $2 product cannot pay for a commercial. The fourth thing is the abrasion, and this is where you throw away almost everything you own. No bench grinder, no wire wheel, no power tool of any kind near that edge. Here is why, and this is not opinion. Any color you see appear on the steel while you grind it, straw yellow around 400 degrees, blue around 550, means you have pulled the hardness out of that spot forever. Tempering, which is the low bake that gives a blade its toughness, runs out with heat, and a wire wheel builds that heat in seconds on a thin edge. So you go by hand. You start with a piece of wet sandpaper around 400 grit, which feels about like a matchbook cover under your thumb, and you wrap it around something flat. a cork block or a paint stir stick, so you're not chasing every dip with your fingertips and rounding the edges of the blade. You work only where you need to, always along the length of the blade, never across, because a scratch that runs the length of the steel disappears, and a scratch that runs across it screams. If 400 does the job, you step up to 600, then 1,000, just to soften the scratch pattern. And you stop. You're not trying for a mirror. You're trying to stop the rust and leave the surface honest. Keep the paper wet the whole time, because the water floats off the grit you are removing and keeps the paper cutting cleanly instead of dragging. Most of the value lives in restraint here. The knife that still shows its age sells better than the one buffed into something it never was. The fifth thing is the conversion, and this is the move nobody knows. You do not have to remove all the rust. You can turn it. Red rust, the flaky orange kind, is iron oxide that holds water and keeps eating. Black patina, the dark even gray black on an old carbon blade, is magnetite, and it is stable, and it actually protects the steel underneath. The goal on a lot of these knives is not bare metal. It is to convert the red to black. A knife with an even, honest black patina reads as authentic to a collector, and it stops corroding. You can encourage that patina with something as simple as brewed coffee or a potato, the tannic and mild acids darkening the surface evenly. And a lot of the old boys swear by yellow mustard dabbed on in spots for a mottled gray finish that looks 100 years old, because that is exactly how 100 years looks. You warm the blade a touch first, wipe it clean of any oil so the surface takes evenly, and you let it sit. That converted finish is often worth more than a shine, because it says the knife lived and survived instead of being sanded down to nothing. I have a carbon case cattleman on my shelf that I forced a patina onto 8 years ago, and it has not shown a speck of red since, sitting in the same Ohio basement humidity that would have bloomed orange on bare steel inside a month. I'll be straight with you. What fits in 20 minutes here is a sample. It is the top layer. What is actually written down runs a lot deeper. The book has 12 chapters, each one built around a single decision you have to make at the bench, and it is set in large type because I am 71 and I know who I'm talking to. Every job in it is done on a bench you can put together for under $40, with no machinery, nothing that plugs in and spins. And here is the part that matters most to me. Every technique in that book carries a line that says, "Check me," with a published, dated source next to it. The National Park Service Conserve O-Gram series. The Canadian Conservation Institute notes, the ASM Metals Handbook. You do not have to take my word for one thing. You can go look it up yourself. There is a 60-day guarantee on it, so if it is not what you needed, that is handled. If you have been watching this thinking about a knife that outlived the man who carried it, that is exactly who I wrote it for. You will find it linked below this video, and the code on your screen takes you straight there. That knife deserves better than a drawer. The sixth thing is the edge, and here is where the working part comes in. A collector wants a knife that still cuts, not a dull relic. But you do not grind an edge back, you raise it on stones, a coarse stone, say 400 grit, then a fine one, around 1,000, which feels like a business card under your thumb. You hold the blade at the angle it already wants, usually somewhere around a 20-degree lean, about the thickness of 2 stacked quarters under the spine. And you push it across the stone like you are shaving a thin slice off the top. 10 or 12 passes aside, and you feel for the burr, a fine wire of steel that rolls up on the opposite side when the edge is fully met. And when you feel that all along the length, you switch sides. You keep the stone wet, so the swarf floats off instead of clogging and glazing the surface. Then you strop it, a few pulls across a piece of leather or even the back of an old belt, and that knocks the burr off and leaves it keen. No heat, no power, no risk to the temper. A knife that shaves a hair off your arm and still wears its original patina is the one that sells. The one that is dull and shiny sits. The seventh thing is the handle. And this is where good men ruin good knives out of kindness. If those scales are bone or stag or antler, you do not wet them and you do not heat them. They crack. You wipe them with a rag barely damp with mineral oil, the same oil you would put on a cutting board, and you let it soak in overnight. Then wipe the surplus off. It feeds the material and brings the color back without swelling it. If a scale is loose, that is a pin that needs peening, not gluing. And gluing a loose scale traps moisture under it and rots the liner from the inside. And if the scales are an old cream or ivory-colored plastic that smells faintly sour, like camphor or an old bottle of nail polish, stop. That is celluloid, and it is breaking down. It gives off nitrous fumes that rust the very blade it is bolted to and every other knife in the same drawer. That is the real answer to rust that appears out of nowhere on a stored collection. The mystery orange bloom on a knife that never got wet. If you smell it, that knife gets stored alone, apart from everything else, in something that breathes, and not a sealed bag that traps the fumes against the steel. Handle right, and 100-year-old set of bone scales looks its age and holds its worth. The eighth thing is the one I promised you, and it costs under $1. And it is the reason half my knives sell. It is the wipe down and the wax. After everything, you take a clean cloth with a little mineral oil and you wipe the whole blade, working it into the pivot on a folder so the joint runs smooth and stays protected where you cannot see. Then, on the outside, a thin coat of ordinary paste wax, the kind you would put on a car or a floor. A can that costs a few dollars and lasts 10 years. You rub it on with your finger, let it haze over, buff it off with a soft rag. That wax is a barrier. It seals the converted patina and the bare steel from the moisture in the air. And it is why a knife I restored 3 years ago looks the same today as the day I finished it. Microcrystalline wax is what the museums use for exactly this. And paste floor wax is the poor man's version of the same idea. A hard film that keeps oxygen and water off the metal. Nobody does this because it is boring and it does not photograph. But a knife that arrives to a buyer already protected, that does not bloom fresh rust in the humidity of a mailbox, is a knife that gets bought and stays bought. 90 cents of wax. It is the last move, and it is the one that holds all the others in place. If there is a tool I left off this list, put it down below and tell me why you swear by it. I read them. Next time I'm going to take on a single knife start to finish, a rusted old-timer stockman found in a barn, and show you every one of these 8 steps on one blade in real time, the whole thing called Barn Find to Buyer. Because here is what I want you to carry out of this. That silent video with the mirror polish and the $200 kit and the jar of cola is selling you a story that costs you your knife. Rust, you can turn. Steel, you cannot get back. The wash, a nickel. The reed, free. The citric soak, 90 cents. The hand sanding, $1. The patina, a potato. The stones, borrowed. The mineral oil, $2. The wax, 90 cents. Under $6, start to finish, and not one power tool, not $1 of branded gel, not one sanded off stamp. $3 in, $34 out, and it still cuts. The mirror shine sells the video. The honest patina sells the knife.